Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Excuse me. So, this video is about Russell Westbrook and the 2016-2017 Oklahoma City Thunder. The inspiration for this video was Rusty Bucket's video about Kevin Durant and his 2013-2014 MVP campaign. So, for those who want to know, Russell Westbrook in 2016-17 was named MVP. It was a ridiculous choice for MVP. It was done on the basis, was somewhat, a sympathy vote, because people were like, oh, Kevin Durant left him in the dark and blah. No. Kevin Durant just realized that he was never going to win a championship with Russell Westbrook, and the media was all over his case for not having any championship. So if the media is like, oh, you gotta have a championship, and you realize you're not gonna win a championship with that point guard, then yeah, and Kevin Durant's been validated given the fact that Russell Westbrook has flamed down the playoffs every year. And while you gotta be careful using what the team does to measure the player, the bottom line is the Thunder have not made it past the first round since Kevin Durant left. And they haven't gone through Golden State. Like, they'd never matched up with Kevin Durant and Golden State. They literally should have won they should have beaten Utah. They were better than Utah. And they probably, given that Portland had no Nurkic, they probably should have beaten Portland. But anyway, the main reason he got the MVP was the whole triple-double nonsense, which triple-doubles are very misleading. They're like a 300-yard game for a quarterback. A quarterback can throw for, gotta be careful with it. It's like, they can matter, but you've got to be careful, and you got to put context on it. Like, a triple-double is not some great single-game achievement. It can be a good one, but like a 300, 400-yard game for a quarterback, but you've got to put context. It's not like hitting for the cycle in baseball or a hat trick in hockey. Alright? You've got to be careful. Triple doubles can be incredibly misleading, and to give a guy an MVP on the merits roll, you don't want your 6'4" point guard getting a bunch of rebounds, because then he's not as well built, and thus him being near the boards. Yeah, I mean, you don't want a 6'4". Let the forwards, let the 6-7 foot center get the rebounds, alright? Like, do you see Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving? No, I mean, unless you're Ben Simmons, who's 6'10", Magic Johnson 6'9", unless you're 6'7" or taller, I don't want you near the rim trying to get rebounds, because you could get your butt kicked. I mean, it's like, yeah. But anyway, and it was dumb, and it was quite clear Russell Westbrook was trying to get a triple-double. Hall of Famer Rick Barry said that Westbrook gets triple-doubles because he's trying to get triple-doubles. Oscar Robertson got triple-doubles because he was trying to win. And, Oscar Robertson, Chris Broussard was on Colin Cowherd show, and he was, trying to take a shot at Oscar Robertson when he was only making Oscar look better. He said that there were times he didn't know he was having a triple-double, which that's the kind of player you want, because you don't want a player focused on his stats. Like Wilt Chamberlain loved his stats. He focused all in on his stats. I think, yeah, but anyway, the third reason is people said, well, his supporting cast was weak, and that's the point of this video. No, his supporting cast was not weak. His teammates that year were the guys like Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, and Andre Roberson, Enes Kanter, Steven Adams. First of all, let's put some context, Fudge. So the Thunder in 2015-16, the roster was pretty similar to the roster that should have beaten Golden State. Alright, the Thunder by all intents and purposes, should have beaten Golden State. There in the Western Conference Finals, there was a reason they were up 3-1. It was no fluke. They were up 3-1 because they had just thoroughly manhandled Golden State. Okay, that's the truth, because what had happened is, Billy Donovan tried to stop all the small ball nonsense and used all the bigs he had, and take advantage of the Warriors' size issue. All right, so for people who say, oh, well, you shouldn't need Kevin Durant because they won 73 games without him. Well, watch the first 4 games of that conference finals. Golden State won that series because Kevin Durant choked and because Russell Westbrook choked. Durant and Westbrook, they gave Golden State the conference finals. The main moves over the offseason is they traded Serge Ibaka for Victor Oladipo. They drafted Domantas Sabonis, obviously lost KD. Well, when you look at the roster, that's a solid roster. Andre Roberson was all defensive team. He made NBA all defense that season. And another thing, people say, well, Oladipo didn't blossom in Indiana till he was with Indiana. Well, actually, he averaged 2 solid years in Orlando scoring, number one, so he was a solid player. All right, Indiana Oladipo was a solid player, just not an all-star quite. And then isn't that kind of a knock? Maybe you wonder if he got better once he left Westbrook? Because, let's just analyze this. The Thunder made the trade in July 2017, made the trade in the offseason. Sent Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis to Indiana for Paul George. Everyone was like, the Pacers got robbed. The Oklahoma City Police Department tweeted, we're having a robbery reported or something, ha 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 ha. And then, that aged very poorly. And by the way, I think it's safe to say now, while we have to see how the picks and stuff that the Thunder got from the Paul George trade, I think it's given that Paul George only played 2 years in Oklahoma City, and I think it's safe to say Indiana won that trade. But anyway, the point is, Oklahoma City added Paul George, and they won just one more regular season game and one more playoff game. Indiana won 6 more games in a tougher Eastern Conference the year before. The East was so much better in 2017-18 than 16-17. So in a tougher Eastern Conference for them, the Paul George last year in Indiana, the Pacers won 6 more games, and they took the Cavs 7, and I'm just going to say it, they should have won that series. The Pacers gave away that series to Cleveland. Indiana was the better team. They blew them out twice. Indiana played better in that series against Cleveland. They should have won the series. It took LeBron single-handedly beating them, and the Pacers giving away that series. The Pacers lost that series more than Cleveland won it. Okay, and you wonder, had they not choked against Cleveland and had just executed better in beating Cleveland, you think they could have legit been in the NBA Finals. And I'm being dead serious, because they would have faced Toronto, and while Toronto would have had the whole LeBronto thing, I mean, they could have beaten Toronto. They would have had arguably the best player on the court, and I mean, no Kyrie or Gordon Hayward against Boston. Yeah, so that's neither here nor there. And then even the Carmelo Anthony trade, same results, and I will give you Melo. I'm no Carmelo Anthony fan. I was a critic of, and I hated on Carmelo before it was cool. I was hating on Melo before it was cool. But at the same time, it's like the Knicks had Kristaps Porzingis get hurt and Nick Hardaway get hurt, legend of winning Mace point. They only went down from 2 wins after losing Melo. And while that's a knock on Melo, it's also a knock on Westbrook. So that's one thing. And then another thing you have to understand is, and this is I think Rusty Buckets made in his video talking about things that bother him about the NBA. He brought up, like, when players aren't like superstars or stars, big names, we tend to disrespect them. Just because a player is maybe an all-star caliber player doesn't mean he isn't an effective player. Alright, there are players, You look at Toronto, Fred VanVleet's not an all-star, but he was pivotal to Toronto's championship last year. You look at, Sean Livingston isn't a, star, but he was pivotal to Golden State's titles. Well, not pivotal, but he played a role, all right? He wasn't Brian Scalabrine getting a ring on the cheap. And the Brian Scalabrine, memes and stuff. People called him the White Mamba and him the GOAT. That's annoying. But anyway, you look at Cleveland in 15-16. Tristan Thompson, I know because of the whole Kardashian nonsense, but Tristan Thompson played a role, and he helped bring a championship to the land. You can go on and on and on. So while guys like Roberson, Adams, they're not, house names. Same with, Enes Kanter. They're solid NBA players. And it was those players who helped form the foundation of a team that was up 3-1 on the fucking 73-9 Golden State Warriors the year before, and would have won that series had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook not wet the bed. So that's another thing. And so when you really analyze it, Oklahoma City kind of won as about what they did. It wasn't that. Winning a ton of games and using that as an argument to say they won that many games with that roster would be like Kobe Bryant 11 years earlier when in the Lakers in a tougher West. The West, I would argue, was slightly tougher in 2005-06 than 16-17. Okay? Smush Parker started all 82 games for the 2005-2006 Lakers. Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, who, is one of perhaps the biggest bust in NBA history. All right. What got significant playing time for that team. The only players you really would recognize, Lamar Odom was on that team. I don't know. I don't remember... Because I forget when I looked it up today. I don't remember if Derek Fisher was on. I'm pretty sure he was on that team. Derek Fisher. I think Andrew Bynum was a rookie, and I think they had some guys that were older on that team. I think Jim Jackson, who was 35, was on the team for a period. I think he got traded to Phoenix that year. And obviously when the Lakers blew a 3-1 lead. But that is doing incredible. It is incredible the Lakers won 45 games for roster. And that's why there are people who think Kobe got jobbed. This is not, 2 years later. And while I'll give you the 2007-2008 Eastern Conference was worse than the 2016-17 Western Conference. The LeBron James winning 45 games in the 07-08 season, which I can't even pronounce the guy's last name. The Big Z guy was really the only legit player. So I don't think Mo Williams was on that team. This is not even, and the video that inspired this, Rusty Bucket's video on the 2013-14 Durant's MVP, I would argue the roster was slightly worse for Durant. The Thunder in a tougher Western Conference. The West was significantly tougher during the 2013-2014 season than it was in the 2016-2017 season. Really, the last true year where the East was an inferior conference, the West was probably the 2013-2014 season. You could maybe argue 2014-15, but a lot of the West dominance that year came from the Southwest Division, where all 5 teams made the playoffs. But Durant, in a tougher Western Conference, won 12 more games, in which, while Westbrook was the second best player, he missed 36 games that year, and Serge Ibaka was the team, and it was that was not a roster, should have won 59 games. The Thunder roster, if you want to look at the KD Westbrook era, the 2013-2014 Thunder were one of the weakest rosters they had. It was not as deep, obviously, as the finals roster, not as deep as the 2010-2011 roster. It wasn't as deep as the 12-13 team. It dang sure wasn't as deep as the team that should have beaten the 73-win Warriors, but choked. That's more impressive. So stop with the nonsense that Westbrook had a weak supporting cast. He didn't maybe have, an all-world supporting cast, but an all-NBA defender, and Andre Roberson, rock-solid players, and Steven Adams, you know, and Enes Kanter, and obviously Oladipo. Sabonis wasn't maybe a world beater then, but, they maybe were made worse because of Westbrook. Maybe that's a thought. So Westbrook overall didn't maybe have a great supporting cast, but he didn't have. This isn't the supporting cast like I looked it up. Dwayne Wade, 2009-10 season, year before LeBron and Chris Bosh came to Miami. Dwayne Wade carried that team to 47 wins, the same amount of wins as this Thunder team, and really, the East wasn't a great conference, but they had 450-win teams in the 2009-10 season in Cleveland, Orlando, Boston, and Atlanta. So, and Wade, I looked up Udonis Haslem and Mario Chalmers, because my alma mater, University of Memphis, a national title, are really the only credible players you would recognize from the 2009-10 Heat. And Wade won the same amount of games, and really at worst, only a slightly worse conference. So, Westbrook had a great season that year. He's a good player, but he isn't really a championship player. And we need to stop. He did not have a weak supporting cast in that season. And it's not super impressive. The Thunder won 47 games with that roster. They maybe won a few more games, but it wasn't like a 30-win roster, a roster that without Westbrook would have won 27 games. I don't think so. So, just stop it. So, that's just a narrative I wanted to debunk. So, thank you for watching. Please comment and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.